George A. Anthony, George, middle initial A, Anthony.
You may proceed, Mr. Ashton.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to direct your attention to the middle of July of 2008. During that period of time, did you learn that the vehicle that we discussed earlier that you owned, but your daughter drove, had been towed?
Yes.
Tell us how it is you first learned of that fact.
I had learned of that fact for getting a notice from the United States Postal Service that was placed on our front door.
Do you recall did you find the notice or did your wife find the notice?
My wife is the one that located the notice at the front door.
And when did she inform you of finding this notice?
I believe it was Sunday, the 13th of July. We had been outside working.
Now, you said you found it on your front door, or she found you. I want to ask you if you didn't find it. So she indicated where she found it.
Yes, at our front door.
Is the front door of your home the door that you normally use for ingress and egress, coming and going normally?
Absolutely not. We go through our garage.
Now, so it was found, you said, on, you believe, Sunday.
Yes.
Do you recall what the notice said?
On the upper right-hand corner, it said the sender's name was Johnson, and it was addressed to both of us. It was a yellow, just a normal United States Postal Service notice that we had a certified letter at the post office.
This was on Sunday. Could you go to the post office on Sunday and retrieve it?
Oh, no.
And at the time you saw it, did you have any idea of what it was or what the certified letter was?
No, because I had looked at the name. I didn't recognize the name of anyone that I knew. And
all right. Now, so what did you do anything on Sunday in regards to this picking up this document?
No, I just mentioned to my wife that I would just go see what it was about on Monday.
All right, so Monday came along. Did you do anything about it on Monday?
No, I could not, because I just had started a new position with another company and had some work issues to go take care of, and I decided I would go ahead and do it the next day.
Was this the job that you talked about going to the interview for on the 24th?
Yes, I had gotten a
Got
new
the job.
position.
All right. So you didn't go on Monday. On Tuesday, did you have a chance to go and follow up on this letter?
Right. Tuesday morning, I'd awoken. My wife had went to work. I had a couple errands to run, and I decided to go to the post office. And
Overruled.
All right. When you went to the post office, were you able to collect the certified letter?
yes,
Pardon me. Approximately what time was it that you were able to collect the letter?
sometime right about noontime.
Right. When you opened the letter, what was it?
Well, on the envelope itself, I saw Johnson's Towing Service, a local address addressed to my wife and I, and opened it up and noticed that there was a notice that our vehicle had been towed.
Right. Do you remember whether the off the top of your head, where the letter said where the vehicle had been towed from or when?
I do remember something about an address and being towed on the 30th of June, 2008.
All right. But you don't right now remember the address?
No, I don't.
Okay. So you get the letter. What goes through your mind when you get this letter saying that it was towed on the 27th? Or 30th, I'm sorry.
Being concerned, because I took a step back second, thinking I was believing that this vehicle was at another location, was in my daughter's possession, and it just caught me a little bit off guard, like, why didn't we hear about it prior to this?
Where did you think the vehicle should have been at the time when it was being towed from whatever that location was?
The last I knew was in my daughter's possession, and she was possibly in Jacksonville, Florida with it.
And was that something that you were told by your wife?
Yes.
All right. So you got the letter, read it. What did you do next?
Immediately I called my wife and I informed her where the vehicle was at. And I said I was on my way to that location to find out more about it.
And did you then travel to Johnson's?
Yes, I arrived at Johnson's Towing probably within just a few minutes because it's not that far away from the post office. And I inquired at the front reception area about our vehicle.
And what were you told?
That there was a normal procedure when a vehicle's towed, this letter gets sent out. I was a little upset about this charge of over $500. We live within a mile and a half of this location. I just asked a bunch of different questions, and yeah, I was a little bit upset because it didn't make any sense to me why we hadn't gotten a notice even quicker, or just a regular phone call like, we have your car.
Was that because it had been, I guess, a little over 2 weeks that the car had been sitting at the wrecker service?
Right, and considering how close it is to our home, it just would seem like a courtesy.
All right, so what did you do next?
Again, I reached out to my wife and I explained to her how much it was. And she said that, okay, she says, I'll go ahead and stop at the bank, we'll get the money, and we'll go and pick the vehicle up. I said, well, let me go home first. Why don't you come and pick me up, and we'll go down and get the car.
Now, did they tell you that you had to bring any documentation with you to pick up, to reclaim the car?
Well, besides our driver's license for identification, we also had to bring a title or copy of title with us to show ownership.
And is that something that you had with you as you stood there on your first visit, or that's something you had to get?
I had to go back I had to go back home, wait for my wife, and we came back with that.
Right.
That item.
Did you make any assumptions about why the car was left someplace? In other words, what could have happened to have had the car being left someplace?
Overrode. Overrode.
I mean, there's a lot of different things that ran through my mind is why I didn't get a phone call earlier about it, either from the tow yard or possibly even from my daughter. I was just, again, I was at a loss for words. Like,
my question was a little convoluted. Did you bring a gas can from home with you?
just because in the past, I've had some experiences with have a vehicle towed or had to go pick a car up from a friend or whatever it might be. And it was always just a common thing to bring some gas along.
And did you bring some gas along on this occasion?
Yes.
All right, so you went home. Did your wife pick you up at your house?
Yes, I waited for my wife. She arrived within a short period of time, and I had the title and some gas, and we went to the tow yard.
And can you tell us what happened when you got to the tow yard?
Well, again, we met with the same receptionist at the front tow yard, at the front glassed-in area, and we were both asked again the same questions over. Why did it take so long to be noticed? Why was it so much money? Sure, we were both very agitated because money for anyone is at a premium anytime, and that $500 some is just something we didn't understand how it could be so expensive.
Right. Did you stay there and talk to the people about the money, or did your wife do that and you did something else?
Both of us, to a point, did. I do remember a gentleman coming to the front glassed area with the receptionist lady, and basically was starting to handle the transaction with us. And I remember we came of some kind of agreement that we would pay a certain amount. It wasn't that exact amount that they had first requested to make us happy, or just possibly just to get us out of there.
Would it be fair to say that Cindy was rather forceful with the folks that were there?
Well, I believe so. She took more of the conversation, because I was, I think, probably more irritated at the inconvenience for both of us having to take time to be there, and it's just a bunch of different things to go through.
Now, so you said a gentleman came to the window. Did you at some point leave with him?
Yes, I'm not sure how long it was. We had the conversation, but I do know that after we had made the transaction to pay for the vehicle, I was escorted to the car.
Right. Now, as you approached the car, and again, by the car, we're referring to, let me not assume, did the gentleman take you to the Pontiac Sunfire, the car your daughter drove?
Yes.
As you approached the vehicle, did you smell anything?
Within somewhere probably close to about a 3-foot area of the passenger side of the car, I did smell a pretty strong odor.
What thought did that odor place into your mind?
I was very concerned about the odor. I had smelled something like that some years prior, and I was concerned.
What thought went through your mind?
That particular smell, whenever you smell it, it's something you never forget. It's a very distinct odor.
But what was there a concern that came into your mind as you smelled that odor? Maybe I should be more specific.
My mind did race somewhat to the point because I hadn't seen my daughter or my granddaughter for some time. I did worry that I did worry about for my daughter or my granddaughter, or both at the same time.
Do you have a thought that they might be in the trunk or in the car, dead?
I was hoping that wasn't the case. I was hoping that everything was okay. I didn't want to believe what I was smelling to a point. I was trying to not think too much ahead of myself.
The odor that you were testifying a moment ago that this reminded you of from your past, was that the odor of a human corpse?
Yes.
Now, when you got to the car, did you have keys?
Yes, we have, for each one of our vehicles, we have at least 2 or 3 different sets of keys that we keep for each vehicle. And yes, I did have a set with me.
Right. Was that a spare set?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? All right. So when you got to the car, what did you do?
I had first made a quick look at the car and see if there's any damage to it. I didn't see anything towards the passenger side or walking around to the front of the vehicle. I did reach towards the driver's handle, and I could see the vehicle was locked, and I did put the key into it and lock it, and just made a quick look inside the interior of the car, the front seats, the back seat.
When you opened the driver's side door, was the odor more intense?
Yes.
Now, looking inside the car, did you see any blood or any indication of anyone having been injured within the car?
No.
Did that make you feel better?
It relieved me a little bit to know that I could not see anything in there as far as my daughter or granddaughter inside, yes.
Did you, then either you or the gentleman you were with, use the keys to open the trunk?
Before we even did that, if I might tell you what I did.
Sure,
prior to
go right
that,
ahead.
I did reach over to the passenger side window, and I did roll it down, and I did try to start the car almost immediately at that point, and it would turn over very quickly. And I do remember it was either myself or the gentleman in tow yard at the same time talking about the car turning over, and I said, well, looks like it's out of gas. I think he said it probably at the same time.
Okay. All right. And what did you do then?
Got out of the car, and I went back to the trunk of the car. As a matter of fact, as I'm walking back, I'm still looking for any kind of damage on the car at all. And I unlocked just prior to me unlocking the trunk, I don't know if I said it in a high whisper or just a real low tone voice, but I just said, please God, don't let this be Casey or Caylee.
By that you mean in the trunk?
Yes.
And when you opened the trunk, what did you find?
I opened the trunk, and towards the left side of the, like the rear tail light, and right there, I saw a white bag, and inside the bag I saw a pizza box. I observed maggots myself, a Arm& Hammer plastic container that's liquid for clothing, and there were some other items in there. I did not touch it.
Now, let me ask you a question. When the trunk was opened, was the garbage bag opened such that you could see these items without removing it or opening it?
Oh, slightly. I mean, it wasn't pulled exactly tight. I mean, probably, I don't know, probably within maybe a 2 or 3 inch circumference. I'm just going by what memory that I have
Sure.
of that.
Now, at some point, did someone remove the bag from the trunk and open it more to kind of look at what was inside?
All I remember is the tow operator, the gentleman who was with me, he stated to me, he said, "Well, this has got to be the smell of your car." And he reached inside, and he's the one that grabbed it and pulled it out.
Now, when you opened the trunk and there was no body in there and there was garbage there, how did you feel?
Relieved, looked up, thank God. I felt more relieved that what my senses were telling me wasn't true. I mean, it wasn't the worst that I was thinking.
You didn't find the body in the trunk that you were expecting?
No, I didn't find my granddaughter or my daughter there, so I was very thankful.
So at that point, the gentleman, you said, removed the bag of garbage. Now, you've given us a description of what was in the bag. You said there was a pizza box and an Arm & Hammer bottle, but how were you able to see that through a 2 or 3 inch opening?
Well, because the bag itself was like a white or vanilla color. It was almost transparent, and I could see the makings of a pizza box. In fact, I could see the Z and the A on pizza.
Okay.
And the Arm & Hammer is very distinctive because it's a yellow container. I think it's like a 64-ounce container or something. I've used that size before. I mean, I knew of that product.
You could sort of see it through the translucent plastic. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? All right. So now, but you did not actually pick up the bag, correct?
I never touched the bag.
So you don't know how heavy it was or anything?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you recall what the gentleman did with the bag?
After he had reached in and made the comment again about this being the smell, or he believed that was the smell, he walked over towards a dumpster, and as far as I know, he tossed it in there. I wasn't really observing him about how far it was or anything like that. I know he's the one that tossed it away.
Now, after he, okay, so he tossed the trash out. What happens next?
I remember going back to our other vehicle we'd driven, that my wife and I had driven in, and gotten gas. Came back, put gas in the car with the tow operator with us, or with me. Started the car. I remember it starting to rain that day. I kept the windows down a little bit and drove it to where my wife was at the front gates, and probably within a few minutes, we left.
Now, when you put gas in the car, got back in and drove it, the garbage bag was already out. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was the smell out?
No, the smell was still very strong.
Did you have to go to an extraordinary efforts to be able to drive the car and stand the smell?
I drove pretty much home, which, like I said, which is in a mile, maybe a mile and a half from our home, with the windows practically all the way down.
Could you have driven the car with the windows up because of the smell? Or?
Oh, absolutely not. No, there'd been no way.
All right. So as you were driving out, you said you met up with your wife at the gate.
Yes.
Did you comment to her about the smell at all? Do you recall?
I don't know if I commented at that point. All I remember is telling her, I says, we need to get this car home. I just want to get out of here. I just was in an emotional state at that time. I just wanted to get going. I just wanted to leave that area.
Now, let me ask you a sort of a preface question. We talked about on the 24th that you indicated, I believe, that you weren't all that concerned about Caylee being missing on the 24th. Was your emotion in terms of your concern about Caylee and maybe Casey greater on the 15th when you were dealing with the car? Were you more worried?
If you're talking about me going back to the 24th of June till July 15th, oh yeah, my feelings got a little bit more strong because I had not seen Caylee since the 16th of June. The last time I saw Casey was the 24th of June. And my concern, I had a lot more concern about not seeing them.
Do you recall when you were walking with the tow truck manager, the gentleman that escorted you to the car, commenting to him about, Caylee or Casey or your concerns? Do you recall if you did?
We probably had some conversation. I don't remember the exact extent of it. I probably did mention something about my daughter and granddaughter. I probably did. That conversation I do not exactly remember today.
If you don't remember, that's fine. So, when you got home, approximately what time of day was it?
I would say roughly maybe 2 o'clock or shortly thereafter.
So when you got home, what did you do?
Well, my wife followed me home. I immediately pulled into our garage and opened up the sunroof on the car, the windows, the hood, the trunk.
Why did you open all the windows and trunk and the sunroof?
To air the car out, to try to diffuse that, that smell. Plus it was raining outside. I couldn't leave the car outside in the rain.
Sure. All right. So you opened the car up to try and air out this smell.
Yes.
What else did you do?
Had some conversation with my wife about why the vehicle was there, why we haven't talked to Casey, worrying about Caylee. There was just a bunch of different things that we talked about. Also being worried about going to my new job. I mean, it's just a bunch of different things that we conversed about.
Now, at either the tow yard or when you got back to the house, did you notice before I ask, let me preface with this. Did you have a role in maintaining your daughter's car traditionally?
I was the one who washed all the cars and vacuumed them during, basically I usually did it on a weekend for all of our vehicles. Even when my son used to live with us, I did his car too.
So would you regularly, prior to June 16th, obviously the last time you saw Casey, but prior to that, would you normally have maintained the car, vacuumed it, cleaned it, all that kind of thing?
Oh yes, changed oil, rotated tires. That was my thing to do.
That was dad stuff.
Yes.
Now, when either at the tow yard or when you got back to the house, did you notice a stain on the spare tire cover in the trunk that you had never seen before?
I noticed a slight circular type stain about where the spare tire was at. I mean, it was slight, but I did notice something, and yes.
And you said it was a slight stain. I mean, how visible was it? Was it fairly subtle or?
It was somewhat subtle. I mean, it wasn't anything like it was black or anything like that in color. I mean, it was something subtle that I could see. It was just probably about the size of a basketball. I'm just roughly guessing on size.
And if you can help us out with this, did it look like there had been some liquid spilled on it or fluid spilled on it, something like that kind of stain, or like a... I didn't finish the question, actually.
Mr. Anthony, before you answer the question, don't answer it until I tell you to answer it. Finish your question, Mr. Ashton.
The rest of the question was, or was it something that looked like something like powdery on the surface?
Mr. Baez, you have an objection?
Yes, I would object to leading.
Objection overruled. You may answer the question.
If you can, sir.
To me, it was just a circular motion. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was just almost like a circle size, like it's a basketball. As far as it being liquidy or powdery, no, that I couldn't really say for sure. No.
All right, fair enough. Now, the interior of the car, you told us you looked into it, you also drove it. Did the interior of the car appear to be in a normal condition?
Oh, absolutely not. The car was messy inside.
Maybe by your standards. Let me just show you a couple of photographs. If we could have, let me see if this is going to work here. Apparently my controller is not wanting to function. Okay, well, I think I've got it. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. All right, thank you. It is working now. If I could have State's Exhibit Identification I, Oh, did I have to switch it to more? I thought it was the other way around. Okay, thank you. Sir, can you see the photograph before you?
Yes,
All right. Do you recognize what it's a photograph of?
it appears to be the inside of our Pontiac Sunfire.
Is that, and that appears to be the sort of through the passenger door, but of the passenger seat and a few items on the
Yes,
seat. Does that fairly and accurately depict the appearance of the car when you picked it up at the tow yard, as far as what was in the car and its general state?
yes,
This time you ought to move into evidence states exhibit I for identification.
What says the defense?
No objections.
It would be admitted into evidence. It states numbered.
May I publish?
You may publish.
This thing is being stubborn again. There we go. Now, the items in this we see appear to be is that a CD case in the middle there of the seat?
yes,
It looks like a pair of sunglasses.
yes.
And what do you know what that brown thing is? Do you remember?
Looks like a brown belt.
All right. As far as the rest of the car goes, it's a level of cleanliness that is the way it appeared that day. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. Yes, please, unpublish it for me, Judge. Thank you. All right, if we could go to State's Exhibit J. All right, sir, do you see State's Exhibit J on your screen?
yes,
Right. And do you recognize this as a photograph of the back seat of the Pontiac Sunfire?
yes,
And does that fairly and accurately depict the appearance of the back seat when you picked it up from Johnson's record?
yes,
This time you ought to move into evidence State's Exhibit J for identification.
What says the defense?
No objections, Judge.
It would be admitted as states numbered.
And let me see if I can publish. May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to do it. It's not cooperating. All right, so, sir, what we see here is appears to be a child's car seat.
yes,
Do you recognize that as being the car seat that Caylee would traditionally use when riding in her mother's car?
yes,
And I believe there appear to be a pair of shoes or two back there. Is that what that is?
looks like a pair of black high heel shoes.
Okay. And again, in terms of relative cleanliness, that's how it appeared that day. Is that correct?
Yes,
Now, in addition to the garbage bag that was in the trunk, do you recall either from your view at the tow yard or when you got it home, if there were other things in the trunk?
at this time I can't remember what else might have been in the trunk. I really don't remember.
That's fine. So when you got the car home, did you then go to work?
Probably within maybe a half hour to 40 minutes. I know my schedule generally started at 3 o'clock, and Cindy was concerned because of my new job. I was concerned too, and it was a sort of a double-edged sword that day for me to go into work because I didn't want to leave, but at least wanted to make an appearance anyhow at work. So yes, I did go to work.
Did Cindy indicate that she was going to take any action based upon finding this car and all the facts that you've told us? What was her plan of action, if she stated one, for the rest of that day?
Question, Counselor, yes or no answer.
Yes,
What was that plan?
that she would try to get a hold of Casey.
No further questions at this time, subject to recall.
Okay, before we proceed to cross-examination, I think it's time to take a afternoon recess. Short one or special one? Okay, we'll take a recess to 3:15.
Mr. Anthony, you testified that you received
the notice from the tow yard on what day?
It was found at our front door on July 13th.
Your Honor, may I have the witness stand down?
Yes.
Can you please mark for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the date and write tow yard receipt? May I have a seat, sir? Now, you heard Mr. Birch testify that the receipt was sent out.
Asking what was the comment on the testimony of another.
Let him finish the question, Mr. Anthony. Before you answer the question, don't answer it unless I tell you to.
I'll
You may
rephrase it.
You may finish the question.
Yes, I'll rephrase it, Judge.
Okay.
Mr. Anthony, you're aware that the letter was sent from the tow yard company around the 4th of July, is that correct?
Question, sir.
I presume it was. I'll say yes.
Okay, so that would have arrived more or less at your home on July 7th.
Speculation, and I do have an additional objection at the bench.
As to speculation, it'll be sustained.
You testified that the tow yard is 1.5 miles from your home.
Roughly, yes.
In your experience, sir, do you know how long the mail takes to get from 1.5 miles if someone sent you a letter?
Yeah, speculation.
If you know, sir.
Speculation, Judge.
Overall, he can say how long it takes him to get mail.
I have no idea how long it would take. I can't answer that honestly. I don't know.
You have no idea. You can't assist the ladies and gentlemen in the jury in telling how long it takes to get a letter from 1.5 miles away?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Now, this was not noticed, and you testified that Cindy's the one that found the letter, or the notice, I should say.
Yes.
And where exactly was this notice placed?
The notice was placed at our front door.
So, where exactly on the front door, if you can explain?
I didn't see the exact location, but I'm thinking that it was placed possibly in the crease of our screen, our front glass door and our inner door.
And the entire week of July 6th through the 12th, you never used your front door?
No, sir, we do not use our front door that's not our main entrance.
And you also could never see that notice from the street?
No, sir.
Okay. And were there any other documents or papers on the door?
No.
Just that one piece of, I guess, orange piece of paper?
If I'm not mistaken, it's like a yellowish in color, real light vanilla yellowish in color.
Okay.
Not a postal service.
And it is you who usually gets the mail, right?
Yes, we have residential mail delivered down the street.
And Cindy works pretty early. She leaves the house early and comes home later in the early evening hours, correct?
5, 6 o'clock, I believe that was her general schedule.
And you're home all day and leave roughly around 3 in the afternoon.
No, about 2 or 2:15, right around in there.
Okay. You testified that your work was 10 minutes away?
At the time this started to occur, I just had finished up with one position, and I had started working for another new company.
And generally, you pick up the mail.
The mails, if I might answer your question and just give you a little bit of information, that I have no control of what time the mail service is delivered. Sometimes it can be delivered in the early afternoon. It might not be till later in the afternoon. I have no control over that.
I didn't ask if you had control over it, sir. I asked you if you generally pick up the mail.
Yes.
Now, have you ever gotten one of these notices before?
Oh, numerous times over the years.
Okay. And have you ever had problems with the post office as to them failing to deliver things to you?
Not that I can remember, no.
And this entire week, after you weren't home, or were you home that week during the day? I should ask you that first.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe my wife was on vacation that week, or we had spent some additional time together away from work. As far as going to the front door every day, I don't do that.
You spent the night, every night, at 4937 Hope Spring Drive between July 6th to July 12th, correct?
I believe so, yes, I'm sure we did.
And that entire week, if it had arrived earlier, well, let me strike that. That entire week, all you got is one notice.
I don't remember all the mail that we got for that week.
My question to you, sir, is that entire week, all you got was one notice that your car was towed.
Yes,
You didn't get a notice the second day saying, hey, you haven't picked up this. This is your second notice from the post office, did you?
Not in evidence that a second notice was sent.
Sustained.
May I rephrase the question, Judge?
You may.
You never received a second notice from the post office.
Sustained.
Are you aware if a second notice ever arrived at your home?
No.
Are you aware if a third notice ever arrived at your home?
No.
Are you aware if you received something that said final notice?
It's a fact, not in evidence.
Sustained.
Are you aware if you got any other notices, sir?
Assumes a fact, not in evidence.
Overruled as to that question.
Would like to ask me that again, since there was...
Are you aware if you received any final notice at your home?
Are you aware if you got any other notices?
I'm sorry, Judge. Are you aware if you received any other notices at your home?
No.
So the only notice that was delivered, as far as you're aware, to your home that entire week was one notice.
Yes.
And you can clearly see the front door of your home from the street, can you not?
Yes.
It's not backed off in a corner or anything.
It's back off the road somewhat. I mean, we have almost like a U-shaped home, I guess, to a point, or C-shaped home. Our front door is back a little bit, set in.
You can see the front door if you're standing in your driveway, can you not?
Basically, yes.
Now, when you testified under direct, I didn't hear you say that you had actually called Amscott on that day. Did you, sir?
I wasn't asked that question.
I'm asking you now. Did you, sir?
I know I called Amscott later that afternoon after I got into my work. After I inquired about the car. I did.
After you got home after you got to work, you said?
Yes, I think it was shortly in the early evening. I was curious about that.
And this was after you drove the car home and went to work?
Yes.
Okay. Did you call Mr. Birch afterwards to let him know that you called the AMSCOT?
No,
So there's no way Mr. Birch would have known that you called AMSCOT.
correct.
And there's no way that Mr. Birch would know that you were aware that the car had been there for 3 days.
Objection assumes a fact, not an evidence. Witness hasn't been asked if he knew that.
Sustain.
Did you tell Mr. Birch that the car had been there for 3 days?
No,
Now, you testified that you went home and were waiting for Cindy to meet you to go to the tow yard, correct?
yes,
And that you had taken gas cans because that's what you usually do.
a past experience told me to take some gas and along with the other identification I would need for the car, yes.
And what tow yard have you ever gone to pick up a car with gas cans?
I've been to, I don't know how many tow yards in my life to pick up a car through their friend or through a family business. So, I mean, I'm very knowledgeable of what to do.
And you just had lucky thinking that the car was going to be out of gas?
Objection. Argumentative, move to strike.
Mr. Baez.
I don't think it's argumentative, Judge.
Sustain.
Was it a lucky guess, sir? That the car...
Objection.
Sustain.
It was a fortunate guess that the car was out of gas.
Same objection, same question.
I'll
Sustain.
move on, Judge. Did the gas can that you took to the tow yard have duct tape on it?
I don't remember which gas can I took with me. I don't.
Did you take the round cylinder gas can that was 20 years old with you?
I don't remember which gas can I took, sir.
Okay. So because you don't remember that, you certainly don't remember if at that point in time you didn't, that gas can didn't have duct tape on it at that time.
Sir, I don't remember what gas can I took
My question to you,
that particular day. I don't
my
remember.
question to you, sir, is at that point in time, you have no recollection as to whether on June 15, 2008, that gas can, the round cylinder for 20 years that you've had duct tape on it.
Would you like to repeat the date that you just told me,
July
sir?
15, 2008, when you went to the tow yard with the gas can, do you know if the round cylinder gas tank that you've had for 20 years had duct tape on it?
I don't remember what gas can I took with me, sir.
I'm not asking you which one you took with you, sir. I'm asking you, did the round cylinder gas can that you've had for 20 years have duct tape on it on July 15, 2008?
Asked and answered to the best of his ability.
Sustain.
Your Honor, I think the witness said he doesn't recall which gas cans he took. I'm asking him a
That's the
separate question.
precise problem. He said he doesn't know which one he took, and you asked him for a particularized gas can.
Correct. And I'm asking him at that time.
And he said he didn't know which one he took.
Now, you hadn't spoken to Casey since June 24th, correct?
The last time I saw Casey was June 24th, yes.
My question to you was, you hadn't spoken to Casey since June 24th, 2008.
To the best of my recollection, yes. I don't know if we text or anything at that particular time. I don't know. I don't remember. But the last time I saw her was the 24th of June and talked to her.
As far as you can remember, it had been (3.5 weeks) since you spoke to your daughter?
Yes.
And when you arrived at the tow yard, you were very concerned for your granddaughter,
Yes.
the most precious thing in your life,
Yes.
the two most precious things in your life.
Yes.
In fact, you were telling people about your missing granddaughter.
No.
You didn't tell anyone at the tow yard that your granddaughter was missing.
If I'm not mistaken, through maybe some small conversation or whatever I talked to the tow operator was, I hadn't seen my granddaughter or my daughter. I did not know my granddaughter was missing, sir, at that time.
You told people at the tow yard that you were concerned for your granddaughter's well-being.
I believe, sir, that I've said is I hadn't seen my granddaughter or my daughter. Yeah, I'm concerned for them, yeah, because I haven't seen them.
And you were concerned about their well-being.
Yes, sir.
And you were telling people this at the tow yard.
I can only think of one person, and I told them that was the tow gentleman, the manager, that it was there.
And that was before you ever got to the car.
If we had that conversation prior to that I don't remember. If we had some small talk going in there, I don't remember that conversation.
And this is after the July 3rd weekend, or 4th of July weekend, when your son Lee had gone to downtown to look for Casey.
Well, the 15th of July, yes, is definitely after the 4th of July. Yes, sir, I'll agree.
So there were active participation on behalf of your wife and your son to find Casey.
Yes, sir.
And at this point in your life, on this day, you're distraught, concerned.
Concerned, yes.
In fact, you told Mr. Ashton that you were at an elevated state, of course, because as compared to the 24th.
I was a lot more concerned than I was on the 24th, yes.
And when you got into the car, you smelled the smell of human decomposition.
Yes.
A smell you never forget.
Correct, yes.
A distinctive smell.
Yes.
One that you have smelled as a detective many times.
Yes.
And when you got in that car, you asked, before you opened the trunk, you asked Mr. Birch to walk around with you and open the trunk with you.
I did not ask him to come around to the back of the car with me, no, sir.
Do you recall giving a statement to law enforcement on July 24th, sir, of 2008?
I've given statements, yes, to the Sheriff's Department before, yes.
Page 23, counsel. Lines 20 and 21. Did you make the statement, sir? Will you please walk around? I told the guy, will you please walk around to the back of the car?
Just a second. Mr. Ashton?
90.108, I'd ask the council read the entire paragraph, entire statement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will be more than happy to. Did you make the statement? You know that I smell, I'm like, oh God. I tried to start the car for a second time and I said, no, George, there's something wrong. You got to find out now. You can't take it away.
Your Honor, objection, should we approach?
Yes.
May I begin again, Your Honor?
You ready? You ready? You may proceed.
Yes. You know I've smelled like You know, and I smell, and I'm like, oh God. I tried to start the car for a second, and I said, no, George, if there's something wrong, you need to find out now. You can't take it away. I told the guy, I said, will you please walk around to the back of the car and look inside this with me? Do you recall making that statement, sir?
That's probably what I said. I don't remember saying that, but if that's what I said to law enforcement at the time, probably was the truth.
And the reason you wanted him to walk around the back with you is because you wanted a witness.
I guess that could be a true statement.
You wanted to distance yourself from all of this.
Objection, argumentative. Pardon me, objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
You wanted to distance yourself from all of this.
I don't understand what you mean by distance myself, sir. I don't understand what you mean.
You didn't want to be associated with any evidence in this case, did you, sir?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
If I might answer your question a little bit in length.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay.
But please answer the question.
Okay, I will. I did not know at that time that my granddaughter was missing or my daughter was not available to be found. I didn't know that, anything like that. As far as asking someone to go to the rear of a vehicle with me, if I did ask him that, then I must have asked him that. Was I trying to distance myself from something? No. If there was something wrong and I needed to get to the bottom of it, I would have been a stand-up guy and taken care of it. I would have not walked away or ran away from something if I really thought there was something really, really bad there. No, sir, that's not my makeup.
Because you're a stand-up guy.
I believe I am. I think I'm a pretty good guy.
And now, once you had your witness and your granddaughter's missing and you smell that smell that you never forget, the trunk is opened.
Objection, argument, move to strike, counsel's editorial commentary.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
You then open the trunk.
Yes, I opened the trunk.
And you smell the smell of human decomposition.
I already had the smell, sir, and I opened up the trunk with this gentleman alongside with me to see what was back there.
And you smelled a more pungent smell of human decomposition.
To be honest, at that point, all I found, sir, in the back of the trunk of the car was a bag full of garbage.
Let me go back for a moment. Prior to you opening that trunk, you said a silent prayer.
I probably did.
And you said, under your breath, lightly audible, oh, please don't let this be my Casey or Caylee.
Yes, I already said that. Yes, sir.
And then you smelled an even stronger smell of human decomposition.
Sir, I already had smelled it prior to getting into the car and inside the car.
My question to you, sir, is you smelled an even stronger smell of human decomposition at that point.
What are you referring to, sir? I'm trying to answer your question.
Once you opened the trunk, sir, you smelled an even stronger smell of human decomposition.
When I opened up the trunk, sir, I've just answered your question. I'm answering it a second time. All I found in the back of the trunk of that car was a plastic bag with garbage inside of it. That's what I found, sir.
I'm not asking you what you found, sir. I asked you if when you opened the trunk, you smelled an even stronger smell of human decomposition.
No.
It got weaker.
No.
I'm sorry?
Sir, I've already answered your question. I don't know how many times I've answered in the most popular and polite way that I can. I'm not going to get upset over that with you, sir. You know, if you're trying to trick me, you're not going to trick me. I know what's in the back of that car, and I know what the tow manager pulled out.
My question to you, sir, is...
Answered you.
Is it your testimony that when you opened the trunk of that car, the smell of human decomposition was not stronger?
At that point, all I seen, or only thing I smelled, or only thing I saw at that time was a bag full of garbage.
I'm not asking you what you saw, sir. I'm asking you what you smelled. And if you...
Come on.
Mr. Ashton can't help you, sir.
Yes. Question.
You're badgering.
No. Question.
It really calls for a yes or no answer. When you opened the trunk of that car, did you smell a stronger smell of human decomposition?
I'm going to answer you again for the fourth time. No.
Okay. Now, you talked about how your experience as a detective allowed you to recognize the smell, correct?
You're the one who brought up my experience, sir, not me. Not I.
Have you testified that as a police officer, you smelled that smell before?
Yes, sir, I have.
And you testified under direct examination that you didn't touch the bag.
I did not touch that garbage bag at all.
Because you know better than to touch any potential evidence.
I didn't know it would be evidence at this time.
And at that point, when you have been telling Mr. Birch about your missing granddaughter, and you haven't seen your daughter in almost 3 weeks or spoken to her, and you smell that smell in that car, is that when you called 911?
I never called 911.
A young woman that you have, your child, is missing, correct?
My daughter, I didn't know where my daughter was at on that date.
And you're smelling her car that smells like a dead body, and you don't call the police.
No, sir, I did not.
And you don't call your daughter to see if she's okay.
I didn't call my daughter at that time.
And you don't call your daughter to see if Caylee's okay.
I didn't call my daughter to inquire about her or Caylee at that time. I did not.
And as a detective, you know that if you smell a dead body in a car, that's a potential crime scene.
At the time, sir, I wasn't a detective. I am just a father and a grandfather.
As a former detective, as a father, a grandfather, a human being, you're intelligent enough to know that if you smell human decomposition in a car and you have people in your life that are missing, you call the police, don't you, sir?
Objection. Argumentative. Question
Overruled.
asked and answered.
Overruled. We can answer the question.
Looking back, sir, there's a lot of things I wish I could have done and I didn't do. So that's on me.
You call the police, don't you, sir?
Objection. Argumentative. Asked and answered.
Sustain.
You are familiar enough with evidence to know that if you move that car, that you may be destroying potential evidence, don't you, sir?
If that would have been viewed as evidence at that time, all I was thinking about was getting that car out of the tow yard. That was my objective at that time, and finding garbage in the back seat and in the rear, in the trunk area of it.
Did you understand my question, sir?
Yes, sir. I understand it.
Can you please answer it?
You'd like to rephrase it and ask me again, I'd be more than glad to answer it.
You, as a former police officer, know that if you move that car, you're destroying potential evidence.
If I would have thought it was evidence at the time, probably. I didn't believe it was evidence at the time.
And you are no longer concerned about your missing granddaughter.
I was always concerned about my granddaughter, her well-being, where she was at, and my daughter.
And you then drive the car home.
Yes.
You air it out.
Yes.
And you go to work.
Yes.
And you don't call the police from your home.
I did not.
You don't go to work and call the police.
I did not.
You don't tell any of the other security officers at your job, you know, that car smelled like a dead body and I haven't seen my granddaughter in 30 days.
Answered. Argumentative.
Sustain.
You don't tell anyone about your granddaughter being missing at work, do you, sir?
Objection. Asked and answered. Argumentative.
I haven't asked that question.
Overruled.
I didn't mention anything about my personal life to anyone at work. I didn't at that point.
Now, on on that same evening, the police arrived at your home.
Yes.
And that's as a result of your wife calling the police.
Objection exceeds the scope of direct.
Sustain.
Since we're talking about the smell of the car, that evening you immediately told law enforcement of the smell, did you not?
Exceeds the scope.
Sustain.
Judge, I would cite Blue v. State at this point. Did you have a conversation? Did you ever go after this day to law enforcement to have a private discussion with law enforcement about this car, about the smell of this car?
I don't know if I did or not. I know the car was at our home and towed from our home.
On July 24th, the same statement we had discussed previously, did you go there and did not want your wife or your son to know you were meeting with law enforcement?
Objection exceeds the scope of direct.
Overrule at this point.
Anything that I could do to find my granddaughter and or my daughter, I was reaching out any way I could and giving information or having information given back to me to find my granddaughter. I didn't see anything was wrong with that.
So the answer to my question is yes, sir? You did meet with them secretly?
I don't know if the word secretly or we contacted each other somewhere or whatever, but I'm sure I'd do anything I could to bring my granddaughter home.
You told them you didn't want your wife or your son to know you were there, didn't you,
The
sir?
scope of direct.
Sustain.
When you went and met with them on this date, you told them about your experience in this smell and smelling that car.
I believe that was part of their investigation.
And do you remember exactly what you said to them, sir, about the smell and your experience in smelling that car?
No, I do not know exactly what we talked about at that time.
Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you the transcript, sir?
Yes?
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm showing the witness page 23, lines 2 through 4. You told them, sir, about your experience.
Objection. Hearsay. Not inconsistent.
Oh, excuse me. Does that refresh your recollection, sir?
We approach that.
No, not right now.
As far as what my experience would have been, I mean, in that short little section that you showed me right there, sure, I believe I answered that, yes, I had a smell like that outside in the woods, in a house, in a car. I mean, that's, sure, I'll agree.
And this is 6 months before your granddaughter is found in the woods.
Objection. Hearsay. We approach.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you may proceed.
Mr. Anthony, the reason you drove that car home and didn't call the police and went to work is because you knew Caylee was dead already. Didn't you, sir?
He can answer that question.
No, I did not.
And you knew, sir, that if you distanced yourself and was at work, that you would be the last person questioned about the death of Caylee. Didn't you, sir?
No, sir.
You know, as a former detective, that the best way to not be questioned or to not make statements about a case is to be as far away removed as possible, didn't you, sir?
Sustain as to that question.
Judge, we will recall this witness at a later time.
Okay. Any redirect, Mr. Ashton?
No, you leave. Mr. Anthony, what date was that certified mail receipt placed on your door?
If I'm not it had to have been before Sunday, so I'm just,
You don't know, do you?
I really don't know. I'm presuming it should have been a few days prior to that. I don't know.
Now, I want to follow up on some of Mr. Baez's questions to you.
Judge, I'm going to object to the
Commentary.
Overruled.
He asked you about distancing yourself from a piece of evidence in this case. Remember that question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Judge, I can't hear Mr. Ashman.
I'll go back over. Mr. Baez asked you a question about distancing yourself from evidence in this case. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you a hypothetical. If Caylee Anthony drowned, and then you took her body out of that house and disposed of it in a field,
Objection, Judge.
then
Yes.
Leading.
He hasn't finished asking the question. It's hypothetical. Mr. Anthony, before you answer the question, don't answer the question until I tell you to. And then at the conclusion of the question, you have an opportunity to object, Mr. Baez. Continue.
if you took that little girl's body and took it down and dumped it in the swamp, then there'd be no evidence in her car, would there?
Objection, Judge.
Outside the scope.
Overruled.
There wouldn't be, would there?
No, sir, there wouldn't be.
So it would be nothing for you to run away from, would there?
Objection,
Judge. Leading.
Withdrawn.
Okay, may the witness stand down? Mr. Baez? Yes, sir, what? Can he stand down? That was what I asked.
if I can have it.
Okay, Mr. Anthony, you may step down. State may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would, at this time, would recall Anthony Lazaro.